Hey, slash I do buckaroos. How the heck are you? I meant to come back about 9. In fact, I was ready at 8. Then I got sidetracked, and next thing I knew, it was 9:30. Anyways, I digress. There we go. Let me figure something out real fast. It's working. Make sure it was where I need it to be. Keeping this video simple, actually. Grabbed a beer. Went to Trader Joe's about 2 months ago now, and I had more stuff left than I thought I did. So I want to finish this one up. This is a drive-through red. This is a Trader Joe's beer. It's a dry hopped red ale, or a hoppy red, if you will. At 7.2%, 42 IBUs. The style that was real popular in the late 90s into the early 2000s, up until about the mid 2000s, I guess, when everything had to taste like fruit salad again. When those hazy started to get popular, nobody cared what real beer tasted like anymore. And everything had to taste like fruit salad. Anyways, they had to taste like fucking fruit salad. Nobody cared what beer tastes like. Um, I'm glad to see that a lot of breweries now are starting to make that switch back and starting to make beer that tastes like beer again. I don't know that it'll make a difference. I mean, beer numbers are down, but I also feel like those that are staying with craft beer are a lot of the folks like me that want beer that tastes like beer. Even though clearly I'm not the demographic anymore, right? You're 60, Tom. Yeah. The truth is, I shouldn't be the demographic anymore. It should be the younger folks. But the under 30s aren't drinking a lot of beer, and the beer they're drinking is very specific. Uh, a lot of younger drinkers are more style specific than this older drinkers were. We weren't style specific per se. Not all of us. I don't want to pigeonhole us all, but most of us liked everything. You know, everything from stouts to IPAs. There are a few that had very limited palates, but for the most part, us early guys, those of us were near the beginning of that microbrew movement. We liked everything because we saw it. I mean, we were right there. I mean, hey, well, we're going to try everything. And still to this day, if I go to somewhere and I have four beers, I have four different beers. I'm not a one style drinker, but I've noticed most younger drinkers, especially the under 30s, are a one style drinker. And every time, it seems like every time I get under 30s in the brewery I work at, they ask for ciders or sours. If you don't have them, they're out the door. And we're kind of an old school brewery. We don't always have those things. So, but it's a different time. And those under 30, in fact, a lot of them are drinking those THC beverages, and they're not drinking alcohol, which is kind of where I was starting this conversation was. That's why a lot of breweries are going back to making beer because they're us old guys, even though we're not going out as much as we once were, we're the guys that are sticking with the beer. Where other folks aren't, they're moving away from craft beer and malt beverage choices in favor of other things. Even though someone like me who doesn't go out very often anymore, to be honest with you, I mean, I work at a brewery. So on my days off, something I don't typically go anywhere, to be honest with you. I may go out once a week at the very most, but the truth is I'm lucky if I get out twice a month. Um, and I think that's where a lot of us, 55 to 65s are. But the downs or the upside to that is that we are loyal, right? We don't go out a lot, but we are loyal. We know what we like. We know where we can get what we like, which is what I think a lot of younger drinkers don't do or aren't. A lot of them aren't loyal to a specific brand or business, whereas older guys are. We are loyal to not necessarily a brand, but a business, especially if we know that business treats us well. And that's kind of a a double-edged sword for both sides of that argument, right? In my opinion, now just as my thoughts, I feel like a lot of the younger drinkers, from millennials on down, I don't feel that they are loyal. But in their defense, they weren't brought up the same way as us older guys, right? We were brought up a very specific way. So when we find something we like, we were very loyal to that brand. There are a lot of breweries in this town. There's a lot of places for me to spend my money. So how do I make those choices? I obviously can't go to all of them. I go to the ones that how do I say this right? I do go to the ones that have the products I like, but I mostly go to those. There's a lot of them that have products I like. I go to those that treat me well. I go to those places that understand customer service and treat me with respect. We've got a lot of breweries in town for the size of this town, and almost all of them make great beer. So how do I narrow it down to just the three or four places that I go? Well, those are the places that I like the best. Not necessarily because of the beer. No, well, not solely because of the beer. Let me say it that way. Not solely because of the beer, because they treat their customers, not just me, but they treat their customers with a certain amount of respect. And again, I think that's something lost with younger businesses, even younger potential drinkers, I suppose. Let's say everybody from millennial down. I think they view things quite differently than us older folks do. I don't hear the word respect as much from millennials on down as I do from Gen X on up, if that makes sense to you. I know respect is very important to Gen X and even boomers. That might be the one thing Gen X and boomers have in common. Might be the only thing, but it might be the only damn thing that Gen X and boomers have in common. But it is the one thing we have in common. That respect is very important to us. If we're not respected or if we don't feel respected, we're not going to frequent your business. Craft beer numbers are down everywhere, not just in my neck of the woods, they're down everywhere. Do I think craft beer is dying? Do I think it's dead? Absolutely not. Do I think there's some so-called imaginary bubble that bursts? No, of course not. I mean, I've been hearing about a bubble bursting since, I don't know, the late 90s. I mean, it's been talked about for forever. So there's always been this ebb and flow, goes up and down. So did a bubble burst? No. But periodically there is a correction. A market gets oversaturated, people quit doing this, that, or the other for whatever reason, and certain businesses decide to call it a day. Sometimes it's the business's fault, sometimes it's just the way things are. Sometimes businesses can find a way to make that correction, but not all businesses have that ability. Some decide to sell, some decide to say, hey, we're just done. And that's something that many of us craft beer geeks have never understood, that it is a business, right? A lot of folks get into the craft beer business for love of the beer. They love the home brew. All of a sudden, it's going to be a business. Not understanding how much work it's going to be, then they realize how much work it's going to be. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. And you can see the ones that make it, some that don't from there. But I think that the other part of that a lot of folks don't get is sometimes you just don't love something forever, right? Sometimes you see folks that have a very successful craft beer business for, 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years for that matter. Then all of a sudden decide to sell or shut their doors. And everybody goes, oh, what happened? Well, maybe they just got tired. With something you love, you do something you love because you love to do it. But when you have to do it, sometimes you don't love it as much. And I think that happens with if you decide to do any business. But craft beer specifically now, I think a lot of folks get into it because they love the beer, they love the process, but they don't necessarily understand the business end of it until it's forced upon them. So they either take on a partner or they learn. But here's the thing, just because you love something, you had this hobby you love, so you turned it into a business. Just because you love it now doesn't mean you're going to love it in 20 years. Maybe you just, sometimes things just run its course. And that's what a lot of us beer geeks get our knickers in a twist. We get upset because they shut down. Why they shut down? Their stuff was so good, or they shut down because they did this wrong or that wrong. The truth is, we usually don't know the answer unless they decide to tell us, and a lot of times they don't. But it's usually just because it was time, whatever that time was. They got older, their kids are gone, whatever the case was. I mean, it's usually just because it's time. It was time to move on, and it's hard for a lot of us beer geeks to understand that because we just want to keep drinking that beer, right? That's our oldest brewery in town. Springfield Brewing Company's been around for a while, but it's gone through some ownership changes. The second oldest, Mothers, it's gone through a couple, and in my opinion, it hasn't been the same. And that happens to a lot of craft breweries. You're going to go through some changes along the way, and hopefully those changes are the right changes. But that's not always the case. I made the whiskey neat choice kind of on the fly here. So I just grab something. In this case, it's one I've had for a while now. I picked this up in September of last year. My wife and I were celebrating our 30th anniversary. We were headed to Columbus, Ohio for our anniversary, but we stopped in Indianapolis for a couple nights where I picked up this, the Hotel Tango American Straight Bourbon Whiskey. It's a 10-year-old bourbon. I actually didn't open this. I've had it for a while now, but I actually didn't open it until May of last year, I guess. So, but I figured it was probably time to burn through it. So I poured myself a couple ounces of this here. That's my neat whiskey. And again, the beer was the drive-through red. It's a Joseph's Brow, Trader Joe's beer. This is a very nicely done hoppy red. Not overly hoppy, but it does do the style justice. My very, very favorite of the style is no longer out there, which makes me sad. It makes me very sad, man. It makes me really sad. My very favorite of the styles, is one done by Grand Teton Brewing. It was called Pursuit of Hoppiness. In fact, they didn't call it a red IPA. They just simply called it a hoppy red. I believe it was like 9% change and a whole lot of IBU, 72 if I remember right, but I could be wrong there. But somewhere along those lines. It was just a great big hoppy malty beast of a beer, and I love that one. Unfortunately, they quit making it, which makes me very sad. But again, just kind of goes in line with what I've been talking about is, things change. I am no longer that demographic. So there may have been a time when, folks quit buying that beer because it wasn't what younger beer drinkers were looking for. And quite frankly, us old guys aren't buying as much beer as we used to. I mean, I know I'm not. I don't have the ability to drink as much as I once did. So we're cutting back. We're not going out as much. So we're hoping other folks are taking up the slack. But generations younger than millennials aren't drinking beer. They're doing other things. Some aren't doing anything at all, in all honesty. I mean, as far as mind altering stuff. There's a lot of THC products, but yeah, I mean, Gen Z or whatever, a lot of them just aren't. They look at life a lot different than our generation did. We were all brought up a very specific way. Alcohol was almost a rite of passage, but today's generations aren't brought up that way, and it's damn good that they're not, because our generation's kind of screwed up. Maybe we wouldn't be the shape we were in today if things were handled a little better. But anyway, I'm just hoping the younger generation will figure stuff out, because boomers on up didn't do us any favors, and so far Gen X hasn't done what we should have either. Now, understanding that most of my siblings are boomers, I'm going to level this insult. Understanding that most of my siblings are boomers, in fact, all of them are boomers, I do believe. But anyways, my siblings are boomers. I'm going to level this insult. The boomers just seem, as a whole, I'm not talking about my siblings per se, but as a whole, boomers just want to be mad about everything without offering any solutions for anything. And a lot of the knock on Gen X is that we want to be indifferent about everything without offering any solutions. And I don't think either assessment is wrong as a generalization. Obviously, we all could have done better. When I look at the next crop of politicians popping up, I hope we can elect somebody under 50. I mean, tired of seeing old white guys. Old white guys have fucked everything up. It's time to let somebody else, take a whack at it. They certainly couldn't do any worse than what we have in there right now. And maybe it's time to hand it over to women, because clearly men have no idea what we're doing. I mean, the whole notion that women are too emotional has gone out the window now that we have the most emotional wreck of a president right now. So, you get women are too. No, you can't have that argument anymore. That argument is done. After we've seen this guy and Kavanaugh and all the cronies cry on camera, no. Now, you can't call women emotional anymore. But I guess my point is, we all need to take responsibility for the problems we create, instead of saying, okay, no, it was your fault. It was your fault. It's the boomers' fault. It's Gen X fault. It's this fault. It's that fault. No. We all played a part in the mess we're in right now. So we all need to step up and say, okay, we screwed up. How do we fix it? I mean, the truth is, I'm more than happy to throw boomers under the bus, because I think they deserve it. But I'm also going to throw myself under the bus and the whole Gen X generation, because we didn't make it better either. And we should have. We had every opportunity to make the changes, and we didn't. So it's time for us to take our lumps too. We want to criticize them. Let's criticize them. Let's say everything they did wrong that we can prove. Let's say everything they did wrong. But let's also stand up and say, okay, they did all that wrong, but we did it too. The one thing I've always loved about myself and Gen X is a self-deprecating humor. Nobody can insult us more than we can insult ourselves. Boomers, millennials want to pile crap upon us and say, you're this, you're that. Oh, really? Okay. I'm going to take that and I'm going to drive it around the block. We will take any insult and drive it till the wheels fall off. You can't insult us, because there's nothing you can say about us that we haven't blamed ourselves for already. And I think saying that, that's what those other generations need to do as well. It's time for boomers to quit being so sensitive about every goddamn thing, and quit being angry about everything, and start taking responsibility where they screwed up. It's time for millennials to do the same too. I already said it was time for us. So I said, what about Gen X time? No, I already said it's way past time for us to do it as well. And I think every Gen Xer that I know has already admitted that we fucked up and it's time to do something about it. But it's time for boomers to finally quit being angry about everything for the sake of being angry and blame everybody else because they don't want to take any personal responsibility. Boomers are always crying about personal responsibility. They won't take personal responsibility when they won't take any of them goddamn selves. We all need to take responsibility and say, hey, we all screwed up. Now let's find a way to work together to make it better. Is it possible? Hell no. I'm an optimist. If it was possible, hell, we'd do it already. It'd have been done already. We're just in some kind of shitstorm now, and I don't know how the hell we're going to get out of it. I'm not even sure it's possible with some of the things that I see on social media. You've got folks cheering for the death of a woman just because they didn't agree with her. It's just bizarre to me because the penalty for non-compliance shouldn't be execution, right? There was no due process. It's not the pseudo law enforcement like ICE. They're not judge, jury, and executioner, but that's what this person did. They acted as judge, jury, and executioner. And when I see people applauding what they did because they didn't agree with what that person stood for, well, then this is why we're in the shit we're in, because we now have a nation of psychopaths cheering on psychopaths. Anyways, I digress. But I digress. Somebody's watching. I could tell. Yeah, Donald, how are you, man? Good to hear from you. Hope you're doing all right out there. Anyways, I better wrap this up. I better shut her down before I irritate too many people. I've been trying not to get into very specific politics, but talk about general things. The bottom line is, I feel like everybody could do better, but nobody wants to. Right? We all could do better. We all could embrace things, but you have too many people out there being judgmental about every damn thing. I know there are certain people I'm never going to get along with. If you think certain people don't deserve the same rights that you have, no, I'm never going to agree with you. If you think certain people don't have the right to exist, no, you and I are never going to come to terms. And I think that's where our country is at the moment, is you have this totalitarian society that we're headed towards, this fascist regime in there right now that wants to say we have to live this very specific way, while they're not living that way themselves. Talking to very small-minded people who aren't capable of critical thinking. Anyway, this is where we are as a society at this point. What are you going to do? Anyways, as my shirt says, just so we're clear, slavery was bad. I mean, just so we're clear, I mean, we shouldn't hate anybody. Everybody has the right to exist. Everybody has the right to be married. Everybody has the right to be. And if you have a problem with that, well, then you're the problem. I am Tom the Whiskey Whisperer, Whiskey Evangelist, prolific whiskey drinker, purveyor of wisdom, and mercy. Mercy. I'm also the beer whisperer, evangelist, prolific beer drinker, purveyor of wisdom, all right, good guys. Lunch you.